Okay, Bob, thanks for coming in today. Bob Gassoff. A lot to talk about today. Before I jump into that, can you tell me and our listeners just a little bit about who you are? You don't have to go crazy, but maybe kind of give them a sense of, high level, who you are, what you do.
Well, appreciate you having me first, Shep, and looking forward to chatting with you today. So, as you know, born and raised in St. Louis. We go back since you and I, the fifth grade at Country Day. Left home when I was 16. Pursued hockey. Was my kind of life and passion, and played college and a little bit of pro after college, and then shifted to some military time post 9/11 in 2003. Did that active duty till about 2009, and came back to St. Louis with my family, and I got into our family business. Been here since.
Well, that certainly is a high level. But as you're talking about that, I remember going to your house. We met in fifth grade, and going to your house, and you had the most amazing Lego sets I'd ever seen in the basement, in the closet. Like, I remember walking in there and be like, holy shit.
I think it's still there. My mom doesn't throw anything out, as you know.
Do you still have bubble hockey down there?
That's at our house now. But I think the Legos are still down there. My mom can't part with them. As an only child growing up, I had to occupy a lot of time by myself, and that was one of the things that I fell in love with early at a young age, and did a lot of alone time with Legos and building, But if I wasn't doing sports or anything like that, I was at home by myself. That's what I was doing.
You should get a handwritten letter from Legos, and they should be thanking you for that, for helping them get out of the gate.
Yeah.
All the Legos you guys were buying.
We definitely kept the market shares up in St. Louis.
You're not fucking around. Okay, so you did go, you went high level. So, you started off really athletically, hockey, and hockey, I think, is really in sort of, hockey is very much a culture like many sports, and really kind of crafting who you are and who you become as much as your family and your friends themselves. And you did have a long career in hockey. I remember we used to watch you play junior blues, and then where'd you go? Was that sophomore year?
So I left after our sophomore year. I left my junior and senior year to go play in Sioux City, Iowa, junior hockey. Most of the kids are 18, 19, 20. And we only had a couple of kids that were still in high school.
So you were playing up?
I was playing with older guys both years.
Yeah.
That was pretty young my first year. So that was my junior, senior year, and was fortunate enough to finagle. I can't take much credit. My parents were fortunate enough to finagle some type of deal. I was not sure how they did it. No one's sure how they did it, how I was able to come back and graduate in the last 6 weeks of my senior year with all my buddies that I was with since fifth grade, which is pretty neat.
In the moment, that was great, but in hindsight, what a great piece of parenting that really was.
Yeah.
To kind of glue us all back together that way.
Yeah.
And all share that time together, I think that was a heads up play.
Yeah. My mom's always been really good at making sure I stay connected to, important aspects of my life, whether it's, my family up in Canada. My father passed away before I was born in an accident. So never got to know him, but got to know him through my family and stay very close to that family because of my mom making sure that I had that connection and relationship. And when I left to go to Sioux City, it was important for her to make sure I stayed connected with my friends here, my close friends, you and our group. And I know you've been on many hockey trips to come see me play wherever I was at the time. And I know Sioux City had a few pretty good, well-attended trips with friends. And,
yeah.
And going up there and making sure that I kind of always had that connection back to my roots here and the things that were important to me.
Your mom really, she's amazing. And I'll say that the thing that sticks is the most memorable about that second Sioux City trip was the flight to Kansas City, Arrowhead, after that, where all of us were just a little banged up from the night before. And the best we could do was lay on the belly of the plane as it was flying from Sioux City, Iowa.
It was like 9 degrees at Arrowhead Stadium.
Was it cold?
Football game. Yeah, it was pretty cold.
Yeah. Your dad must have been real impressed. But so, anyways, you're going off to Sioux City. You're becoming. It's getting serious. Like hockey is something you're really dedicating yourself towards. What type of hockey player are you developing to be at that time? Because we know that you go off to Michigan and you're part of some fabulous teams. And so, tell me, what type of hockey player were you?
Yeah, I mean, back then, the game's changed quite a bit. I was just a real hard-working, gritty defensive defenseman. Played tough, and didn't find myself on the score sheet in the goal and assist column as much as I would have liked, but found my way on it in some other aspects, and had a lot of penalty minutes. And
is that fair to say you created space for the goal scorers?
That was my job. Yeah, that was just, and it wasn't kind of intentional. That's just kind of the way I played. I didn't really ever go out looking to start shit, but the way I played and my intensity level and who I was, it always kind of just seemed to happen. And
I never felt like you had a sense of avoidance, though, either. Meaning, like, you weren't necessarily looking for it, but
when it came, I wasn't going to back down.
It didn't feel like it.
No.
So you were becoming a pretty physical guy on the ice. Obviously, your skills, I think you're underplaying. I mean, you were playing high-level hockey, and you also were getting exposure to guys who are going to be absolute superstars. So those guys were at Michigan, so you go from Iowa. You played a year between Sioux City and Michigan, right?
Yeah, I played same type of hockey. I played junior in British Columbia. The other league comparable to the USHL Sioux City League I was in, and I call it my postgraduate year.
Yeah.
But pretty common path for hockey. Usually.
How good a hockey is that where you were that year?
Similar to Sioux City, just the Canadian that's the premier Canadian league at the time, and still is. Things are kind of changing right now with NCAA, but those are the two top leagues, and so I'd say 95% of the college big Division I athletes are coming out of those two leagues.
And so you're there for the year. So that's basically like the Musketeers. Sioux City could have played that team.
Yeah.
Like talent wise or skill wise.
Yep.
Did you guys play?
No.
Okay,
no,
totally different leagues.
Separate.
So you're there that year and you're starting to look at college opportunities. Mm-hmm. We know you end up going to Michigan and playing there. Where else were you looking, or was it Michigan or bust?
No, it was. I mean, Michigan was obviously a goal and a dream of mine for a long time, and I had an opportunity to go up there a few times for some camps. Red Berenson played with my dad for the Blues. Obviously, I knew him and had a relationship, and got exposed to Michigan early on, and just fell in love with the place, but realized it was it's a lofty goal, right? Everybody wants to go to
They
Michigan.
were number one at that time?
Yeah, since the early 90s, they've always been in kind of the top program. And so I was playing, and obviously that was kind of like, my goal and dream, but I realistically didn't know if that was going to happen. And I talked to, at the time, Notre Dame had come watch me play, Vermont, Clarkson, Cornell, some up east schools, and had some conversations, but I was really getting ready to go back to Chilliwack in British Columbia for my fourth year, my 20-year-old year, and an opportunity came up, and they had a spot open up in Michigan, and Red called me. He's like, "Would you be interested?" And it's like, "I'm on the next flight." So
see you in a minute.
So that was really an impactful moment in my time that kind of guided so many things from that point on in my life, not just Michigan hockey and playing, pro and my relationships there, but, moving on later in military life. And now with my own kids, they all play hockey because they're, fourth generation. And
yeah, well, there's no choice.
We like to say it's mandatory in the family until you're 18, then you can figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I coached my son, all these years. This is the first year I didn't coach him, and so I coached the girls team this year, and I had both of them on one team. My 12-year-old played up with my 14-year-old, and we work is busy, and I a lot of travel with Bobby's hockey, so usually there's 2 or 3 trips a year. And it's like, well, we're going to maybe just do one because that's enough, right? And I said, but if we're going to do one, we're going to make it really good. It's going to be quality over quantity. And so we got them into a girls tournament in Ann Arbor, and it's actually just outside of Ann Arbor. And so we went up there, and I asked the tournament director, could we get, one of our games, since I'm an alumni, on at Yost Arena, which is our rink in Michigan.
Okay.
And he's like, well, I'd love to do it, but we don't get ice at Yost. Nobody gets ice at Yost. I'm like, okay, let me see if I can work on that. So
nobody used to get ice.
Right? So I called him back and I said, hey, I got a sheet of ice at Yost at 1 o'clock on Friday. Can you put one of our games there? He goes, how did you do that? I was like, so. I know some people. So the girls got to go up there and play at Yost, and then we had a tour of the locker room there, and then went over to the football big house, got them a tour there.
Wow, what a trip.
And we went to the Michigan State game, which was that night at Yost. And so the girls got to, experience.
Must have been jaw-dropping.
An unbelievable, amazing experience. All the girls on the team had the best time. And so, I'm still reaping the benefits today with my kids of being able to have that opportunity to make that decision so far back ago.
And how many times had you sat in the seats in that arena during a game? Was it weird to be on the other side of the glass, or have you been to enough games?
I haven't been to a lot, but I try to get to one, maybe two a year since I've left. During my active duty military days, I never really got back for a handful of years, but I do try to get back now at least once a year, and it's fun. We've had some reunions for some of our championship teams.
Some of your
that
pals
were there.
show up.
Yeah, so it's and still lifelong friends that.
That's a good group. I remember I've met them a few times, and it's just like kind of be ready when you hang out with those guys, because it's like I don't know, it can get rowdy.
It can get rowdy.
Fun rowdy.
Same similar fabric to our group of friends here and some of my Navy friends. So I'm just fortunate to have so many like-minded friends, but in different circles.
You've built good groups. So you show up at Michigan, you get the call, you show up, you got your bag and your stick, and maybe a couple changes of clothes, and you get on the ice. What's that moment like? When you're at the first practice, are you just kind of like, Jesus, this is the real deal?
I mean, honestly, you're hanging on, right? You're like, holy shit, this is big time. I mean, obviously a lot of guys I played with went on to play in the NHL. Pretty much everybody played on pro at some level, and you're playing with the best of the best. And guys like Billy McCult and Marty Turco, who had great NHL careers. Bill is now the head coach at Lindenwood here, and those guys were just so dominant in the game as seniors that year. And you're a first year guy, and you're trying to.
Were you seriously like, holy shit, this game is so fast?
Yeah, it was eye opening, but you just you put your head down and you keep working hard, and after a few weeks, you're not just trying to keep up. You're in the mix and you're playing, and then farther down the road, you're actually you feel the improvements, and like you're one of the guys regular guys there. And then the next year, you're not the rookie. You're the guy that's been there and done it, and the freshmen are now in the spot that you were the year before, and you just kind of go through that process. And do
you remember a moment where you were like, I can do this? I know you, so you were like, I know I can do it. But did you ever have like a moment? And I know I'm not talking about complacency. I'm just talking about a moment where you're like, okay, I deserve to be on this team.
Yeah, I mean that freshman year is interesting. It's very, very competitive, and we had about 24 guys on the team. Only 20 dress, 25 guys, 20 dress every game. So me and my roommate, who was also a defenseman, we were really battling for that last, the defense spot, the same spot. And he was a very offensive defenseman, highly recruited, and we were very different players, right? Mm-hmm. And he got most of the playing time, the first half of the year, and I think I maybe only played, a handful of games up until Christmas. So it was tough, it was challenging, and I was pushing myself and working hard to get better and close that gap, right? And then the way it worked out is I got my opportunity, and when I got my opportunity, I stepped up and I performed and played really well, and I never got out of the lineup, the rest of the year after that, which was amazing because that was the year that we won national championship at Michigan, which was incredible in itself because we had 10 freshmen, and so if you look at you got 20 guys,
you only got 20 guys,
20 guys dress, and we had 10 of us, 9 of us. One guy was in the lineup, he was hurt, not there, but We had 9 freshmen. So of the 18 skaters, 2 are goalies. Half our team was freshmen. So we weren't expected to win that year. We weren't the most talented team, but at the end, when it mattered, when it was on the line, we came together and we were the best team. And we bought into the system and we bought into each other. And when you got 20 guys pulling a sled in the right direction that way, anything's possible, and we were able to make that happen.
I didn't realize that you had that many freshmen on the team. You guys must have had insane chemistry. It
was really good, and it was unbelievable. And it wasn't that way to start, because we actually had we had one of our freshmen. He wasn't hurt. He actually was asked to leave the team.
Like, as in not welcome anymore?
Yeah. And there was an issue with this person all year long, and it caused such a rift between our class and the upperclassmen and our team in the locker room. Chemistry was not good because of this one person. And
one person.
Finally, it came to a head at a certain time, and around, I think, early February, and he got kicked off the team, and our team never looked back. I mean, you could feel
it changed everything.
You could feel the lack of tension dissipate from the room, from Tuesday to him being on the team to Wednesday not being there. I mean, it was tangible. You could touch it. You could actually feel it.
What was the source of his divisiveness? Was he sort of like he was a really good player but let everyone know about it?
It was a lot of stuff. He was just engaged in a lot of things that just weren't very team focused, team dynamic. Just caused a lot of distractions and turmoil, and kind of just didn't have the right character that everybody else kind of had and that we needed as a team to be successful. So there's a lot of different things, and it's probably best I don't get into some of them.
No, no detail. It's just like teams are so, even the strongest teams are so delicate in some ways, and the fact that one personality or one presence can throw the whole thing out of kilter is, I mean, how many books have been written about that? And it's just really unbelievable that, I'll say a fly in the ointment, it's just like this one thing amongst 24 guys.
Right.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's a cliche, fly in the ointment, one bad apple spoils a bunch. And, I kind of lived through that and saw that firsthand, and it was amazing. The effect the effect negatively that person had, and the effect that positive effect on the situation when that person was removed from that, our chemistry, and whether you're on a hockey team or a SEAL team or an office team environment, it just really goes to show you that one person can have just devastating, detrimental effects on that team and being successful and achieving your objective.
And it's really, I've talked about this before, which is leading a team is about creating the right team. It's also about defending the team. Like, once you know that you're really starting to get everything clicking, this concept of I need to defend the team comes into play.
Yeah.
Meaning that you start being very, when you're building a team, you know that there's going to be a ratio involved of how many people work and don't work, and then you start to reach a point where you're like, got a lot going on right here, and I need to just now really defend what's working. And it's just sort of this inflection point of teams.
Right.
But I would say, so you're playing hockey at Michigan, things are going well. Are you feeling like you're on a track to NHL?
I mean, I'm on a track to go somewhere. Not sure where. Obviously, that's the goal for everybody. And you're playing with guys that are playing at the next level in the American Hockey League, which is the AAA right before the NHL. And so you just really have to just take it one step at a time. And you got to have your goal, but you have to just take it one step at a time. If you get too far ahead of yourself, you're not focusing on the 6 feet in front of you that you need to be focusing on. So it really is one step. And for somebody like me that wasn't as highly skilled or didn't have the talent that a lot of guys I was playing with did, I had to work harder than everybody else did to get the same outcome, to get where I needed to go to get to the next level. You got to focus on that moment. So.
And is your body holding up? Like, this is serious sports, right? So are you healthy through this? And Everything's pretty much okay.
For the most part, I had a few, you always get bumps and bruises and stuff, and nothing too major. I broke my sternoclavicular joint one time my junior year, and didn't really realize it was broke, but I couldn't feel my arm or move my arm, and it kind of hard to stick handle.
It's going to mess up your game.
So it was weird. I had to take like Toradol just to get through the pain in the game, and then I found out I was allergic to Toradol, and I would break out in all these hives. And then so I'd have to take Benadryl to offset the Toradol, and that's
it begins.
Yeah, trying to get through the moment, right?
Wow.
But and it still bugs me a little bit every now and then.
Did you ever have that like treated or looked at, or you just kind of like it'll eventually heal?
I honestly I didn't know if it was like a month later. I asked my trainer, I'm like, this is still bothering me. Like what's going on? He's like, yeah, you broke your sternoclavicular joint. I was like, well, you never told me that.
That's where this comes together.
Yeah. It's like, okay. You never told me that. And he's like, well, there's nothing we could do about it anyway. And I knew you could play through it. So it's like, well, this has sucked for like a month. But
I would have liked to have at least known.
Yeah. Thanks for the heads up.
Thanks for the do no harm.
Right. So other than that, I haven't, I broke my fibia in half, and I didn't know that was broke either. I just thought I had a deep Charlie horse in my calf, and I had a hard time walking. And I had this pad on it that, you could, an extra pad that you could kind of see through your hockey sock. And
how high up on it did you break it?
About mid, maybe 2/3 of the way up.
Okay, so above the top of your skate.
Oh yeah, for sure. So okay. I had an extra pad that I put on there, and this is the difference between Canadian hockey and American hockey, and it's a little it can be a little sadistic and harsh up there across the border, but I was
like playing through the pain kind of deal.
Well, I was skating by the other team's bench on a shift. Another guy was skating behind me on a line change, and he was done. And he saw this bulge coming out of my sock that looked like an extra pad, right? So he knew something was up, and he took his stick and he just two-handed me right in the frickin' pad, and I went down. I'm like, oh, and thought I was just starting to get a little bit better. And
oh man,
and so I think I was out for the rest of the game, and then I went and got an X-ray on it because I was like, this has been like 2 or 3 weeks, it's not getting better, and then this guy just two-handed it, and it's really hurting.
Did he re-break it effectively?
I'm not really sure what happened, but I don't think he re-broke it, because I think it was already broken. It had already been starting to heal, and so when I had the X-rays, and they said, yeah, your leg's broke. I'm like, well, like, what do you mean, like a hairline fracture, or was like, no, it's like broken in half. It's full on broke, and so I had these X-rays, and I'm like, oh my god, like,
can you stitch it up?
Right. And so I go back and tell the teams, like, oh, your leg's not broke. I'm like, no, I got the X-rays. Like,
still not broken.
And then I showed it to him, like, holy shit. Like, you've been walking on this, like, no cast, nothing for like 3-4 weeks. And like, I can't believe, like, your leg, literally, it's a complete fracture. And I don't know, just kind of.
So how long did you give it? Or I
gave it another couple more weeks. I actually got off of it. There's nothing they could do at that point. I just needed to rest it. So I gave it another 2 or 3 weeks. And
yeah, that's all you get.
That was it. And so time to get back to it.
So was your style of play when you got to Michigan, is that an NCAA style of play, or did they have to sort of say, Bob, we don't do that here?
Well, like I fought a lot in juniors and after college. In college, they frown on that, and you get, suspended. Your first fight, you get 1 game. Second fight, you get 2 games. Third fight, you're kind of done for the year. So
seriously?
Yeah. So I would always kind of find my way into 1 or 2 a year, just to kind of knock the rust off and make sure I wasn't letting the skills, get too far away from me. And it just happened. And there was one that ended up being a pretty well-known one with our Michigan State rivalry, where we had kind of a bench clearing brawl at the end of the game.
Yeah, that's the one that I've seen on YouTube.
Yeah,
correct?
Everybody always talks about that one. They're like, "Oh, I saw that one." That was
didn't the ref accidentally get involved in that?
Yeah, he tried breaking it up a little prematurely. We weren't really, or I wasn't quite ready to kind of settle down.
It wasn't done.
I was still looking for anybody wearing green at that point.
What touched that off, by the way?
So
is it just the
it was just
rivalry
the rivalry
itself?
It's built up so much, right? And it's such an intense game and an intense rivalry, and you really, you eat, breathe, sleep it for 4 years at Michigan, and so you literally hate each other. I mean, to this day, the only thing green in my closet's my camis, and I need them for my Navy job. Other than that, I don't have anything green.
So it's a real hate.
It's a real hate, right?
Yeah.
And so one of our guys got hit at the end of the game,
like checked hit, kind of.
Yeah, hit from behind and.
A little dirty?
Yeah, it was a little dirty, and we were at their rink, and they had just opened up their rink. They did a bunch of renovations. It was the grand opening, reopening, and obviously they're going to save that for the Michigan game and make it a big deal.
Yeah.
And we went and we shut them out 2-0. And
Nice.
I was actually in the penalty box with a guy because we were getting into it, obviously a couple minutes earlier, and so the game ended, and the penalty box guys opened the doors, and we went out, and it right away, and it just started getting
Wait,
squirrely.
so your penalty had elapsed?
It didn't elapse. The game had expired.
Oh, so this is all at that?
We were still in the box. If the game hadn't ended, we still would have been in the box.
Just watching.
So we went out, and I didn't know at the time. I was just going to defend my buddy. I was going to go, get in the face of a couple of guys that had just hit him. And the guy that was in the box with me was chasing me around the rink. And he was, and I was trying to just get away from him because I wanted to get to somebody else, and he wouldn't leave me alone. And I finally just turned around and I just, smacked him pretty good, and dropped the gloves and went at it. And my helmet was, I don't know if I didn't have a buckle, it came off pretty quick, and his was still on. And
did you help him get that off?
Eventually, yeah. So I was yanking on it, and had it bolted on pretty good, and so he was able to get a few shots in on me because I didn't have my helmet, and I was trying to get his off, and I couldn't get it. And then finally, I said, "Oh, with it, I'm going to start throwing." And so I
started banging his helmet.
I gave him a good uppercut in the first one, and knocked his face mask off his helmet, and then got a few other ones in, and then the ref got in. I was just getting ready to get going. That's when I was pissed
the engine's
off.
just turning.
So the ref got in, and I really wasn't too pleased with him for interfering at that point. But
he must have been a new ref.
No,
or something like that.
I think he knew it was time to get involved.
Yeah, because he's like, this kid's getting hot.
So,
we need to.
Yeah. So, but things happen. It's fun, and
it's part of the game.
It's part of the game, and my buddy Bill, who's coaching here, Lindenwood, he actually coached with him at Michigan Tech, and they used to give him a bunch of crap about that. And he's a great coach and doing great things up in Lake State right now. And it's a small world, a small fraternity.
Yeah.
And at some point, whether later on down the road you're playing pro with somebody, or you get traded to another team, you play with guys you played against, and you end up being teammates, and really everybody's cut from the same cloth, and you hate each other when you're on the ice. But
had you ever been, let's say last year, back when you were playing hockey, you get in a fight with some guy? Have you ever found yourself on a team with one of those guys?
Yeah, actually, my first year in Sioux City. And I was the young kid and had to literally fight my way, and earn my way, and earn my respect. And I was I was 6, just turned 17, and I was fighting all the 19, 20-year-old tough guys on all the different teams.
Some big boys.
There's some big boys and some tough boys. And that year, our coach made a lot of trades, and I think we had 6 or 7 guys that I fought on other teams that ended up being on our team at the end, which was
that?
It was a great team because we all played the same way.
It was a rough
we were all,
team.
Yeah. By the end of the season, nobody wanted to screw with us because we had some pretty good tough hombres on the team. But
the Danbury Trashers by the end of
pretty much
by the end of the season. Well, where I'm going with this, because I think your hockey journey is really awesome, and I know myself and all the St. Louis buddies always really enjoyed supporting, and just the stories you would come back with when we couldn't be there. But you loved hockey. You love hockey. And hockey's changing as you're coming through. First of all, the stature of these guys is getting enormous.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys, how recruiting can be. They're like, okay, we just got to draw a line somewhere. If you're not over, 6'7", it seems like these days it's hard to get a look.
Right.
I was just at the Blues game the other night. Those guys are massive.
Yeah.
There was one guy that I was like, you look normal. I think it's 26 Walker.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he's like a normal height, and he's probably like 6 feet. I don't know how tall he is, but
yeah, he's a smaller guy, but not many guys like that out there for sure.
So hockey's changing. Like dudes are like, are getting really big. And, you know, I don't know the specifics. That was just my observation from the outside. But where I'm going and where I wanted to kind of take this conversation was last night as I was thinking through Bob Gassoff, and you've done all these really admirable, great things. What did I think was the coolest? And we're right at that juncture. I know you went and played after Michigan. You were recruited. Was it NHL minors basically?
Yep.
Is that so? What's that chapter? Because where we're going is you end up in the Navy,
right?
After all this, so you graduate from Michigan. What happens at that moment?
So I was undrafted, so I was essentially a free agent. So I could have gone wherever I wanted. And then so I talked to Chicago, and then St. Louis obviously gave me the opportunity also, which was tough to pass up, being from St. Louis, and my dad played for the team. So I went to their rookie camp, played really well, and you know, did my thing. You know, fought a little bit, played a good, solid, tough defensive game, and ended up earning a spot on the AAA team, and then I also, you know, I'd go down and play some games, and you know, about half and half with the AAA team and the AA team in Peoria, and then. But during my time at Michigan, I kind of got hooked up with some guys that were one on my team or other athletes that were interested in doing Navy things, and had a good friend, mentor who had been involved with the SEAL team since, you know, Desert Storm timeframe, and as a doctor, and he was a faculty advisor to the athletic department, so he knew all these athletes at Michigan that either, you know, and he did some stuff with Top Gun before he went to do some stuff with the SEAL community. So he had a little collection group, if you will, of athletes at Michigan that either, you know, wanted to go fly in the Navy, go be SEALs, or, you know, be docs either in the Navy or outside. And he was a great mentor for all of us. And that was something that I had actually been exposed to during my time in Sioux City. I had an uncle who was in the Navy in Vietnam. He flew, and he had some SEAL buddies, and used to talk to me about some of their stuff and stories. And he used to bring back some literature and stuff for me to read. So I was a little bit interested in that world, but didn't know a lot about it. And then when I was at Michigan, I expressed interest in that after hockey. Obviously, hockey was my life, and didn't know.
So you're kind of plan B a little bit?
I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, I was, I think, smart enough to know that, you know, like, hockey doesn't last forever. I mean, Wayne Gretzky, the best player in the world, isn't playing anymore, right? So at some point, you know, hockey ends, and you got to figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life, right? Mm-hmm. So not knowing what the timeline and that looked like, that was something that had interested me, as something that I was wanting to learn more about and considered, and but didn't know where my hockey journey would take me. So, you know, through Michigan, that was, you know, those aspirations were developed and honed, and that was more and more what I decided I wanted to do after hockey was done. So, so I was in the Blues Farm team the next year. 9/11 happened. I was in Worcester. I remember when that happened. We were going to the rink, and I remember going down in the lobby of the like a Residence Inn, this hotel suite place where 8 or 10 of us players were staying right down the street from the rink, and saw on the TV in the lobby what, you know, one of the towers had been hit, and went back up to my room and, you know, watched this second tower get hit, and then went to practice. You know, I was like, shit, I got to go to practice. I went, and our coach, Don Granato, had family that, you know, worked down at the World Trade Center or in that area in New York. And so everybody was just like really, you know, obviously unsettling moment. Everybody for our generation remembers where they were, right?
Absolutely.
And so we didn't have practice that day. And because of my relationship with these other friends of mine at Michigan that were already going through the SEAL process, they were already actually SEALs. I was the younger guy. I was like the youngest one in what we call our Wolverine platoon. Mm-hmm. And so they were already going, and I knew they were going downrange, going to war. Mm-hmm. And so I went through that year, you know, up and down in the minors, doing my thing, working hard. And then, you know, but it was tough knowing that I had guys that were really going to put themselves in harm's way and fight in a real war. And it was hard to.
Here I am pushing a
Here
puck
I am,
around.
you know, playing hockey, you know, and so I had that little bit of a conflict on, you know, what's important in life. And the next year, same thing was starting with the you know, the Blackhawks farm team in Norfolk.
So you different organization.
Yeah. And St. Louis was really stacked at the time, and they won the President's Trophy, you know, best team in the regular season, and it was just, you know, there's only so much opportunity, and timing's everything, you know.
Yeah.
And so
the conveyor belt had stopped.
Yeah, so if I was going to have a chance to play more, Chicago would have been a better place, opportunity, and so things were going well. And then they had a trade where they got a bunch of defensemen, and you know, everybody kind of just starts getting shuffled down, right? So at that point, I kind of had to make a hard decision with myself that, you know, I wanted to go be a SEAL. I was 24, I wasn't getting any younger, and I had to, you know, make my peace with hockey and say I had a really awesome, incredible run, and it was, you know, I wouldn't have changed anything. Obviously, with my father, you know, playing, that was, you know, not just my family, what we did. It was not what I did, but it was also my connection with him too. So it was really hard to step away from that. But I realized that, you know, all good things come to an end, and what are you going to do after? And I felt like I had something else, you know, pretty big and substantial that was, you know, calling me to go do after.
That's
hockey.
that's really exactly how I remember it, which was from my perspective as you were going through that time period. I really remember that conflict you were having. The reason I think it's so interesting because it's such a massive life pivot, which is, you know, you've been a hockey guy. Even this Bob Gassoff plays hockey. So you've got an identity thing, but you also have the reality of like, what am I doing? I'm in the minors. I remember you having feelings of like, you know, I just don't know if these guys are going to do what I want to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and is hockey. I just remember having a conversation with you. Like, I feel like we had the 9/11. You had the pull of that, and that your buddies, I remember, are out there downrange. And you're sort of kind of, like you said, coming to peace with your hockey life. And it was amazing. You just made this decision. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Right.
You know, and it is such like a bright line to me in the history of you, Bob Gassoff, of like, in the decisiveness. I was aware of, you know, the connection with your dad. I was aware of like, man, this guy's been traveling the world, or, you know, North America to play this game. And now, bang,
Right.
he's going here.
Yeah.
And so do you remember the moment you were like, fuck it, I'm going?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, maybe not the exact defined moment, but I remember that period of time where I was, and I'd left Norfolk and drove up to see a buddy, Kevin Magnuson, who was a Michigan teammate of mine, and he was working in Washington D.C. for one of the senators, and spent a few days with him, and then drove home and just had a lot of time to kind of reflect, right? And that's kind of when it said, all right, I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And that, you know, I had to be all in making that decision. Certainly could have made another decision. You know, fortunate to have you know, family business back home, which would have been, you know, easy and to kind of come back and step into that role, but I wasn't ready. I needed to do something else. I needed to, you know, being somebody who had been a part of a team his whole life. It just seemed like the right thing to do, and certainly the right time with post 9/11. You know, when I wanted to do it initially, it was, you know, 9/11 hadn't happened. It was like, you know, but this is a team. This is my type of an environment. And after 9/11, it more of an impact and a purpose, right? And it just made sense. And so if I was going to do it, I was going to be 100% all in. And, you know, you have to be going into that lifestyle, but it was tough just leaving literally my whole identity and starting from scratch with no guarantees. And
it was scratch.
It was scratch, right?
It really was.
So they don't care who you are, where you came from. I mean, you're a no-name nobody, and having to, you know, build up your own reputation again and work hard, and, you know, as an officer, you know, be a leader and lead your guys. And
they don't care about hockey.
They don't give two shits.
They literally don't care if you can skate.
Yeah.
I mean, at all.
Right.
I mean, you brought a lot with you. But so when you made the decision, was there a feeling of relief? Like, okay, I can put down all that noise in my head. I mean, you picked up another set of things, but
there really wasn't time to process. And honestly,
right.
it retrospect, maybe that was a good thing, and maybe that helped make my transition away from hockey, easier than it should have been. I know a lot of people have a hard time transitioning, from the sport, whether they make it to pro or not. That's what you've done your whole life. It's your identity. It's who you are. And so when you leave, a lot of guys, in a lot of instances, stay in the game in some way, shape, or form through coaching, through scouting, through whatever. But it's a very hard transition, and growing up with seeing a lot of my guys I play with, my dad, and basically everybody from then to now, and seeing so many guys play their whole life, and the transition is difficult. But and it was for me for a second, but I didn't have a lot of time to dwell on it because I really had to focus on something pretty major and big that I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself or worry about it or have that kind of maybe that separation.
Well, you had
anxiety.
that whole other feeling of I'm about to step on the ice,
right?
Like here you go again. You're stepping into the big arena of going to what you got commissioned to OCS, right?
Yep.
How I mean, I don't know if that's a bunch of detail, but how do you go from like, okay, I'm dropping my skates to now I'm going to OCS?
Yeah,
like,
I wanted to go in as an officer, and the only way you do that is by going to the Naval Academy or ROTC or through Officer Candidate School, and that's the smallest. It's the most. Going through the Naval Academy has its own incredible challenges, and is a hell of a process that they have to go through. For the OCS piece, there's only 10 slots a year for Officer Candidate School SEALs.
Really?
And those 10 slots, back then, I don't know if it's different now, but half of them.
So you somehow were able to gain access to go to OCS, which is a large pool of people, and then from that point, 10 will be able to go into the SEALs.
So, but that 10 is, they have a program, they used to have a program called Seaman to Admiral, where they would take already enlisted SEALs that were going to go put an officer packet in to get their commission, and they would go into Officer Candidate School. So about 5 slots went to that program, and then so there was only a remaining 5 for guys like me that were just off the street. And there's a lot of people that are vying for those spots, obviously. And
how many? Like, give me a sense of. Like, with thousands.
Yeah, probably high hundreds, thousands. And they're all top.
They're all Bob Gassoff.
Ivy School, Stanford, Division I wrestlers, lacrosse, swimmers.
So you just go kick the shit out of all of them, and
so you have to put your packet in. That stands pretty tall. But I was working on doing that for the years leading up to that. I was kind of doing the right things and doing things I needed to do to be the type of leader and person that I would have an application that when I put it forward. My thought process and philosophy was I'm not going to put an application and say, hope that I get picked. My application will be such that they're going to have to say, how do we not take this guy, right? So I'd done a lot of things, and through my mentorship, through my friends and that were prior to me going through, I felt like I was pretty prepared. But I spent a year, I'd say getting out of shape, which I was playing pro hockey, so I wasn't out of shape, but spent a year getting out of hockey shape into SEAL shape. And I remember
that you invited me to go swimming a couple times.
Yeah.
And, we were both fine swimmers, but you were talking about something else.
Right.
You're like, here's the workout today. And I was like, Bob, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
Like, people don't swim. Like Katie Ledecky, she would struggle with this workout. And you went from what I would call a recreational swimmer to a swimmer.
Right.
And that was crazy. You did change your body.
That was the hardest thing for me. Like, I grew up, with a pool and swam, but I never was on a swim team. And that was the hardest thing I had to really do. And 2 of my friends that were at Michigan prior to me were both water polo players and high school swimmers and whatnot. And just phenomenal guys in the water. And I remember I had a real come to Jesus moment because I had left my hockey career. And this is November. This is two or 3 months after I had left. And I was training back home. And I went out there to see them, and they were getting ready to they were doing their workup to go deploy, to combat.
Are you out at Coronado?
I'm at Coronado,
okay.
yeah. So I went out with them, and I'm swimming, doing master swim training, and 5 a.m. at the Clayton pool with the master swim team, and great workouts, and really putting me through the ringer and doing what I needed to do. And so I went to visit them in San Diego, and they're like, "Why don't you come swim with us?" And it's like, okay. So I went and swam, and we did an ocean swim. Well, learned real quick, when you swim in a nice, 60-degree, 70-degree pool with lane lines that keep you going straight, and it's a lot different environment than when you're out there and you're swimming with waves and currents, and there's no lane lines, and so 2-mile swim can be a 2.5-mile swim pretty quickly
with the drift,
or if you're not a good guider, and when there's all types of waves, and you're swallowing salt water, and you're getting the shit beat out of you, and you it was miserable, and it was really bad.
And you're not even in it yet. Like,
I'm not even in it. So this was and the conditions were really bad that day.
This is when you were still living in St. Louis.
I was in St. Louis.
So you go out. And
I go out there. It's like, all right, let's go. Let's put me through the ringer. And it was a really bad surf day. We were like the only ones in the surf, and it was like just bad weather conditions. It was kind of the winterish, which is can be a little sketchy. And so we went out, and they took me on the swim, and I just about drowned. I mean, I was miserable.
Seriously.
I mean, I was puking. They were pissed at me because I was swimming so slow, and I was stopping.
This is for me.
And then I was like, holy shit. And I had a real come to Jesus. I'm like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Oh, I can say that or not.
Yeah, you can now.
All right.
Wait, so you say, what did I get myself into at this point? Really just OCS.
Right. Well, I wasn't even at OCS. So I was working on my packet, which takes about a year to get through the process.
Okay, so did that actually shake you a little bit?
It did. It was like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? And is this what I really want to do? Because
you didn't enjoy that.
I hate the ocean, and I get seasick like the best of them. It was just kind of funny. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're a SEAL and you get seasick." I'm like, yeah. There's actually a lot of us, like a lot of my buddies, that got seasick. But I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm all in. And so that was when I made the decision that I needed to move from St. Louis to San Diego and start training out there in the ocean.
Get in the element.
Running on the sand, because 7-10-mile runs and soft sand's a lot different than running the 10K at Forest Park on the hard pack.
Well, they're both impossible.
So I went out there. So I got a lot better at it, a lot more acclimated, and I pushed through it, and my packet got accepted, and I went to OCS and went to Buds, and I puked my way through training and puked my way through a lot of times when we were on the water going through as a SEAL, active duty. But that's it was a lot of fun.
Tell me about so you get through OCS, and they say, okay, you can go try Buds, which is basic underwater demolition school. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so you get out to Coronado. And I mean, like you said, this is like Yost, like you're back walking on this big ice again. You don't know anybody, probably. And just walk me through like that moment of like, holy shit, I am actually now on this stage. And that must have been something to be like, I have a challenge in front of me. Like I'm just at the starting line. I've done OCS. I've gotten in shape. I've done all this just to get to the starting line.
Right.
And statistically speaking, a certain number are going to roll.
Yep.
And some of it is just bad luck. Like you snap an ankle or, so sometimes, someone's toughness is just going to get outmatched by some really unlucky thing that could occur.
Yeah.
That truly would make it impossible to continue and then maybe re-up for next year, whatever. But you're on this stage, and you got, I've seen movies. I don't know how close it is, but it's an intense environment. Let's say, what is that moment like? For you?
It's a pretty good kick in the nuts, like you said. It's there's a lot that goes into it just to get on the starting line, and then once you're on the starting line, it has over 80% attrition rate, right?
Is it
so?
80? Okay.
And it's we like to have the guys that don't make it quit, because you want to get rid of the guys that can't hack it, right? But to your point, you said, things happen. It's it's a rigorous, very physically demanding, harsh program that no normal person or doctor or physician would probably recommend for somebody.
Program,
it's 6, a little more than 6 with the pre-indoc phase, and then you go into advanced training, which is another 4 months, a couple extra months if you're an officer, because you got to do some officer stuff in there. So it's basically like a year to get through it. And
but you show up and you just walk into this facility, and is it go 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 go? Like it's on, like no time to think, like.
It's kind of crazy, and the instructors are if you end up being a SEAL, that it's your peer group, right? So you it's just part of the thing that you do. If you go to a team, you go do a deployment or two, and then might go out of that cycle and go be an instructor, and then you go back to a platoon. So when I went to my platoon, I had a handful of guys were my instructors that put me through BUD/S, and so so the standards are very, very strict, and I was an officer, and there's certain military protocol that goes along with that with your instructor staff. They still have to kind of
recognize
you. So they're like, hey, you're not putting out. You look like a piece of shit, sir.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
But they're making sure you hold the standard, because they know when you go to the team, and they may be on your team with you, and that actually happened in my team, and you're their boss.
They're not going to respect you.
Well, you're their boss, right? So as an officer, you have to be in the top of all the runs, the swims, all the PT, your academics, your dive physics, all that stuff, and so for me, it was actually I found it kind of rewarding, made it easier, because I didn't have time to worry about myself and my own misery and my physical just being beat down, and or my mental being beat down, because I was too worried about my guys, getting my guys through training, taking care of my guys, taking care of the big picture, taking care of the team, which is what it's all about.
And I know it's not realistic that you would have ever quit. But were there ever moments like, this is hard?
Oh, no question. I mean, you're in Hell Week, and Hell Week is just a part of training. I mean, there's a lot of other times post Hell Week where it's like, this really sucks, and it'd really be nice to just say, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to go and take a warm shower and get a hot meal. But that's not.
I mean, is there any? Can you get over the hump in BUD/S, or is the whole thing? Like there's no hump. There's
no hump. It gets harder and harder and harder. I mean, again,
and your body's breaking down, I would think.
Everybody always thinks Hell Week is like the big hump. Hell Week is like week 3 or 4, whatever it is now. It's changed over time a little bit, but that is definitely a gut check and a big phase where a lot of guys quit. But it doesn't get easier. It gets harder. Your run times, your swim times, they get faster, and you're going longer. I mean, third phase, you're doing a 14, 15 mile ruck run with a 100-pound rucksack, and I mean, you're just kicking your butt left and right. It's just what you do.
And there's some point, I would imagine, when how many people start? 200 or?
So we started. So this was kind of like post 9/11 and the Bush era. They were really trying to expand the amount of SEALs that we had, and the classes used to start with like 100, 115, and they end up getting like 15, 20, maybe 30. And so the thought process was, well, if we double the size of the class, we'll double the size of what we get out on the other side, right? And that just doesn't work that way. So they were doubling the class. So I think we started with probably like 238 guys, and I just remember because I had to take muster for everybody as the number 2 in charge.
Yeah.
But we'd still end up with the same amount of guys on the back end. I think we graduated about 40 in our class, but we had a pretty large roll-in class, guys that were hurt that rolled in. We had about 20 guys that rolled in. So of the original 238, we had 24 guys that were original.
So when do you start to get strength from the fact that like, okay, it looks like our team's starting to form? Like during BUD/S, you're like, okay, we got like 43 guys here now. Are you starting to get strength of like, okay, I'm starting to see the team emerge?
Yeah, I mean, again, Hell Week is a big one.
Too goddamn tired.
They always say, the first couple months, certainly pre Hell Week, don't make friends because they're not going to be around long. Right?
But trust them.
right?
At the same time.
Yeah, it's hard.
You got to get through it.
You got to get through, and you're working in your boat cruise, with your boat or log PT, and you can't do that on your own. You need you guys to your right and the guys to your left to get through all that. So, but after that, the drop off isn't so great, but there's still a lot of attrition and guys that aren't making the cut for whatever reason, and it's a selection process. And instructors are pretty good at seeing, what guys are team players, what guys are rowing in the same direction with everybody else, and what guys are not in it for the right reasons.
So they may facilitate them dropping out in some ways. Probably they may ride them a little bit.
Things have a way of working themselves out.
So I know we're coming up on time, Bob, and what I want to kind of take us eventually here quickly is at some point during SEALs, you must have thought, I've made the right decision. I'm so glad I did this, and I'm so glad I'm not on the ice right now. And you probably did a lot of self-talk thinking that to get yourself there. But do you remember when you're like, hey, I'm really glad I did this?
Yeah, I mean, all through, you just don't know until you come to graduation if you're going to make it through, because literally there's guys that have gone up to a week before and didn't graduate. So and once you graduate, and then you're moving on, you're in a little bit more comfortable place, but there's never room for complacency. I mean, it's even a couple of my buddies that have gone to some of our like advanced teams, which are more publicly known now and in the news now than they used to be, and those guys would say, hey, for like, every year I've got in the teams, that buys me like maybe 1 or 2 weeks of credibility, and you have to get up and earn it every day, and there's no days off, and we have a saying, in the teams, once you earn your trident, you still got to get up and earn your trident every day. I mean, that's great. You made it through BUD/S, you made it through advanced training. Maybe you got some deployments, but
there's always opportunity to slip and fall behind and not be the team player you want to be. But as far as your life decision is concerned, you've left one thing and gone to another, and there must have been, you ignored it, but there's like, I hope I've made this right decision along the way. And what I'm drilling down on is the idea of this pivot you made. You did so seamlessly from where I sit and where others sit. It's like Bob just went and crushed that. And it was something to really observe, and something that I remember and I think about as I do things. Like, just put yourself in a good position and hit the gas.
Right.
And just put your plan in action and go.
Yep.
And I just thought that as I was thinking about our discussion today, like, that's, I think, is amongst the most impressive things I've seen you do. And I was like, well, what's Bob Gassoff's real talent? Is the same thing you did when you got out of active duty, which is, that's one of the hardest transitions a human can make, is coming back to St. Louis to like sort of this very tranquil existence, and your buddies aren't here. And I was like, maybe Bob's real gift is his ability to transition to this new set of life circumstances. I know none of that's easy, but the way that you do it, I think, is really admirable.
Well, you get to a point where you have to make that decision and make sure that it's principled and you have good validation behind your decisions that you make, and then I think that helps being able to buy in. And for me, again, 9/11, that was a big deal. Going to the SEALs, and I wouldn't have changed it for anything in the world. It was definitely the right thing to do, and I had to be all in on doing it. And then when I had my son, Bobby, I wasn't planning on having kids that early, and I growing up without my father, and I already lost a lot of really good close friends from combat. Once I had my son, that wasn't something that I wanted to be doing.
Right. That's a risky line of work.
Yeah, so that was another hard decision, transition for me, but it was the right thing to do for my family, and to be there and to make sure I was a dad for them, and in a way that my father didn't have the opportunity to do. And so it made the transition I guess easier. It's never always easy, but it's it's the right thing. And so when you make good decisions based on in principle and a good foundation of perspective, I think it's a lot easier to really be all in and hit the gas, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get you out of here, Bob, but really, really is admirable. And I'm glad that you indulge this conversation and drill down on this pivot and your ability to kind of find your new teams in life. And one thing I think you also do really well is you stay in touch with your teams, which is, as life gets busy and we're all sort of getting pulled in all these directions, it's always caught my attention at how good you are at keeping your spheres of life sort of in your ability to bring them together. So thanks for coming today, man.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time, Shep.
You bet, man.
All right.